tracking the progress. So I like, just to save time on the diaries, I feel like we can cover this up during the working group forum. I can understand AR tool itself is a big chunk of project in conjunction to other things which are going in VAT, MTD. But yeah, we should be able to cover this during the working group forums, and you are already then picking everything from the scratch. And Ritesh is kind of a key person here for the AR tool. He's the one who is gathering all the requirements. Now he'll be working on the build, then he will do the unit testing, I believe, Ritesh, and then he will be doing most of the chunk. And I think it's more like from VAT team, you guys need to do the testing and prepare all the training documents, start giving, socializing the tool, start giving the training session. So that is like between you and Ritesh, the sub team, it will go. So I personally feel that there is no requirement for additional call just to keep the status update, because we are covering it up. And I think the major chunk was the requirement gathering, which Ritesh has already covered. We have that all in place, and Ritesh has already started the build. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ritesh, you have started the build at the background. So he will be more devoting time in the build, and then he will update us. So
yeah. Richa, you are right in most of the point, but I mean, just to bring everybody on the same page. So the AR tool itself is a tool which has multiple stakeholders. So one is the VAT team, which is currently owning the existing tool. Luke, as you are already aware, they own the tool. They currently own the tool in the sense that all the stat data table which is there being used by the existing tool are updated by the VAT team based on the request from various areas, and the other kind of stakeholders are people raising the invoices itself. There are teams from finance, JEPs, from tax team who are using this tool for different purposes. So some are only viewing invoices, and there are some reports which are being taken out of that existing tool. Now, I mean, at a very high level, when we are looking to replace the existing tool with the 2B tool, the 2B tool where what we are designing is we are designing based on the inputs from the VAT team. But at the same time, Richa, this is important that we need to have a buy-in from different stakeholders. As I told earlier, the finance team, the JEPs team, and the most important team, which is the user who is going to actually raise the invoice. So when you come to UAT also, it's not the tax team which is going to do the UAT of the tool in itself. It will only be able to do UAT for a part of it. So basically the users who are raising the invoice currently in the existing invoice tool would be the same users doing the testing and providing a sign-off that the new tool which they're going to move to is providing the functionality what they were using, or if there is a deviation, there is a reasoning behind it and they agree to it. So basically, we cannot just rely on tax team to do the testing and give a sign off. We need to have the different stakeholders signing it off. That is an important aspect, and this is where we lost the battle last year, where we developed the entire tool. We had different round of discussion with stakeholder before building the tool. We built the tool, and when we went for UAT, we understood that the team which is actually going to use the tool is not ready to accept the changes.
Exactly. Yeah. So for that we that what we have planned. Like Luke will send first the initial email to all the users, all the stakeholders, and then we can have a session. I will arrange a session with everyone where we will gather, like, if whatever like their requirements are there. So there we will gather, and then we can split in two pieces. What you can cover during your build right now, the small changes or the requirements which you can cover, and if there are any big chunk of change or a big chunk of requirement is there, that we can take decision afterwards, like, but we do not want you to stop the build. We want you to keep building at the background, and in a meanwhile we are so that we are progressing. In a meanwhile we are arranging the requirements for the other stakeholders. So I think the first step is for you, Luke, to send the email. I have not seen yet. Maybe I
haven't sent the email because I don't have sufficient information, which is why I'm doing this call. So appreciate it and get your point from the forum, and that's a useful place, but there's some things I do need to know. So with regard to the requirements, can I confirm you have the full requirements from the VAT team?
Yes, so basically, Luke,
just yeses and nos, and then if the answer is no to anything, we expand on it. So we've got, that's a yes,
yes.
From, what about finance?
We don't have any requirement from any other team, no.
So, are we not gathering any requirements from any other team?
That is where Richa mentioned that after the email that is sent out, we need to engage with other stakeholders.
That will be part of that second stage, yeah.
Well, this is my point. I don't have dates for second stages. I don't know how many stages there are. If we are going to get requirements from users, I need to know that we're getting requirements from users, not that it's the next stage. I want a complete understanding of how this is going to go from now until it goes live globally. What is needed before then, and when it's needed, and who's going to deliver it. So I'm happy to do stakeholder comms, but I want to know exactly what I'm communicating and what exactly I need to get back from them. So it's just a bit fluffy for me at the moment, and I'm not comfortable with that. So I just want to capture a note of that. So no, there are no requirements from finance at all. We're not taking any.
We want to take, there are no requirements at this stage which have been.
Okay, so they are providing requirements. When do we need it by?
At the earliest, Luke.
So that sounds like a priority to me. We need to get comms out to. So are the finance teams different from the user base? Is there only one team that's using it? Where do I find this out?
The team which is raising the invoice is completely different, and the finance team is completely different. The team which is raising invoices are front office team, the trading team. I think Kritika and Rohit are the right people to provide exactly who the user base is from the tool invoice raising perspective.
Well, let's separate that. Hang on, sorry. Are we saying that the user base is different from finance, or finance is the same as the user base?
It's different. Finance is one set of users, but they are not the only users.
So let's be clear, that's finance users. So I need to ring fence those. Sorry, Karen, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I mean, I just just about to mention, like, the users list I've already shared. The active users, who are raising invoices or invoice tool, is available in that list, and in the static data reports that I've shared with Ish.
Yeah, so in that user base, it didn't separate out users from finance users. So I want to deal specifically, I want to ring fence the finance users. So we can go to them. I can support Ritesh in going to them and gathering the requirements for the AR tool, and I will do comms to them as a separate and distinct whole. I don't really trust kind of broadband announcements to get things done. I like to keep things targeted. So I would like to get a message out to them in the next 24 hours, defining what they need to provide and requirements, giving them the background and that kind of thing. So, Karen, do you have details on who the inverted commas finance users are, and can you specify those to me, or is that something I should follow up with Kritika and Rohit?
I mean, I remember Kritika prepared that list. I have to list into, but yeah, the available users I have shared it, and I will check again. But the finance team to whom we have to reach out to this information I'm not having or is not visible on invoice tool right now. So that I have to look into.
So are you going to come back to me on that then, Karen?
Sure. I'll check with Kath. We'll come back to you.
Excellent. Okay, Jeff.
We are here talking about business area-wise finance team, right, Luke?
Well, we are here talking about whoever in finance Ritesh requires to give requirements. And so we need to define that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
So since Rohit is also in the call, Luke, I mean, let me clarify this. The basis of requirement is the document that we have prepared based on the input from tax team. What we are going to the finance team is we're going to take this document, go through that document holistically. Now, if there are significant changes which are coming to the requirement, we will not include it as part of this tool right away, because that will require additional budget, and we have limited budget, so that will be taken as part of change management as agreed with Rohit. What we are going to try and do here is we are going to try and replicate the invoice tool into SAP by creating the AR tool with the basis of the requirement that we have from the VAT team. And if there are some features which finance needs for the initial thing, and which are compulsory and which we can incorporate in this phase, we'll try and take those on board. The others will have to be taken as part of change management.
And I understand that. My point is, none of that is going to happen unless we know who they are and we target the right teams. This is why I need to target the right teams. And this is why, rather than doing a general discussion to a wide user base, I want really targeted conversations to make sure we get the right people on the call. You can take them through what we've got. And while I appreciate we have limited budget, what I do want to trap is their requirements so that we can then build like a second phase of the plan. We have visibility of what we need but don't have, and then start considering that in the long term. So that's why I want to ring fence them.
Yes.
Okay, so Karen's going to confirm the finance teams. Can you cross-reference with Ritesh to make sure that you've got all the teams we need? Get that to me as soon as possible. I will go out to them and set up a call with everyone on this one and the finance teams, and then we'll do that as a briefing call, but I'll prepare the comms for that. Cool. You said JEPS.
Sure, Luke.
Who is JEPS? I don't understand it. What is JEPS?
JEPS is the expense team which handles specifically the BCP and the syndicate BCP invoice, where we have engagement with vendors, and the process is specific for BCP and syndicate BCP, where the JEPS comes in picture. So it's a subset of users similar to finance user. So basically, if you have to divide the user base to take requirement, we have to target the front office Karan as one set of users, which you already have probably the list for. We'll need a similar list for finance user and for JEPS user. And the fourth set of user was tax team, which is your team itself. If there are other jurisdiction and you want to involve other tax team members, happy to do. I mean, you can share that as an additional list.
Yeah, I draw a distinction between the wider tax team and the UK VAT team. So, yeah, we're going to have to use that as a separate and distinct user base.
So four lists we need then. One is the person who's raising the invoice, end user. Second is the finance user. Third is the JEPS user, and fourth is the tax team across jurisdiction, which are going to use this.
And the order I think we need to do it, and correct me if I'm wrong, so you've got that team tick. Then I think we need to target the finance users to make sure where we are with broad functionality. Then a specialisation within that group, which is JEPS. And then when we've got all of that in place and we know where we are, we can speak to the global tax team. They'll probably we'll probably have to do one in the morning and one in the evening to cover the global requirements. So that's four sets of comms right there. And then once we've got those requirements in place, that's when I want to go out to the wider user base and explain it to them. And also, even if would you say we are looking for requirements for them? Because I don't think we are. What we're really looking for is to raise awareness and to get them thinking now about providing some people for UAT. Would you agree with that?
Yes. So basically, when we are going to them, what we are mentioning that the process that we stopped last year because of some apprehension, we went to the drawing board, back to the drawing board. We made adaptation, and we're going to restart the project, and we're going to kickstart it with discussing the new design. That is how, rather than putting a requirement gathering, we'll say we are discussing the new design, and any inputs to that design would be considered for the future build, but it may or may not be part of the first phase. Maybe something on those lines, Luke.
Cool. Okay, so that helps me. That gives me a very distinct messaging. So that is awesome. Which is exactly what I want. Okay, now I want to do some more practicalities. I don't think I have access to the invoice tool, and what I'd really like is access to the testing environment. And what I'd like to do is, how do we do that? Who's got it and who needs it, basically?
I think Kritika and Karan can help you with the access to those, because we also don't have access. We have only access to the UAT environment, so probably Karan and Kritika can help.
Yeah, Luke, there is a request. I'll share you the details, how to raise the request, and I will approve it from our end, and you will right away has the access, and you can use Invoice Tool platform.
Cool. Is that something that can be replicated across the business? Because
but for UAT, Ritesh, I'm not sure how UAT access will be provided to Luke. I can provide the general access which users raise us.
I think raise
the invoice.
Same way you can directly add the user in UAT environment, but that you need to check with Kritik and Yogesh, because they added my user ID there as a user. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'll follow up that separately. Yeah, if you could let me know and send me the link, and I'll get onto that, and then we'll follow up on that.
Sure.
If it is a separate environment or not. Okay, the next thing I want to know is, well, I know build's going on, and that's fantastic, but there were a couple of comms that went, or a couple of messages that went round the other day, which I found a bit confusing, and I actually responded to them. So my first question is, what is the background of this? Are we using a number of static tables? So when I talk about that, things that come to mind are, business bank accounts. And there's a sub-process there, I've got to go out and try and get people to get onto SAP, because we want people we want to be able to draw the details from SAP. And, when you think about it, it's a simple thing, but when you look at it, there's a lot of individual steps there, and that's what I'm trying to do with this call, is kind of plan things like that out. So, static tables, one is bank accounts, and for that we need to get all bank accounts that are needed onto SAP.
So, regarding this, I can share, I was just about to share my screen and show you, Luke, how this Invoice Tool looks, and whatever static data tables are available right now, to have a overview. From the output background.
Let's pass through the static tables. That's good. Let's share it. Let's see it. Let's go.
Yeah.
And also, please, can you tell how long it will take you to build, based on whatever requirements you have, to cover those all requirements? How long it will take you to build?
Yeah.
You're already working, but.
Yeah, Richa. So based on the requirement document that we have already created, we needed 6 weeks to build the tool. And we have started this Monday, so we can consider from there the start time. The other point here is for the static table itself, we are trying the design in the existing tool and the 2B tool would be different.
Yes.
Some of the static tables would remain there. Some of the new static table will come, and some of the static table which are in the current tool will not be available in future. So tax team doesn't want to own the bank data, for example, which is being owned by tax team. So we are doing away with the static table for tax as such. But we do have certain static table which are to be maintained by tax team. For example, the nature of underlying service, the tax code determination, the EU country.
So what I want to know is all the static tables we're going to need, whoever is looking after the data and owns them, and what we need to get those up and running in place. Simple things like whether you can do sort of a mass download of data, or do you individually have to enter things? So, for instance, bank accounts. If you've got 20 bank accounts, will the new tool be able to draw direct from SAP? Will it need a specified list? And if it does need a specified list, is that updated manually, item by item, or is that updated by data drop? All of these things have an impact on time, and also, I don't know what we need until I know what's going on in it. And so if we can go, rather than sort of examples, if we can actually go through the tables we're going to need right now, that would be really helpful. And then I'd really appreciate if anyone could pitch in if there's any special details about it.
If my screen is visible, these are the tables available. These are the statutory table. One is for user accounts, and for tax codes, countries, clusters, and business areas. These are for bank accounts, and these are for billing entities. And going forward, as per what Nitesh...
Too fast. Okay. My little fingers can't move.
I was just dictate. Whatever is visible on the screen, I was just highlighting it. Yeah, we can go on. Separately to every static data table, and the details I've already shared.
Which is fine. See, Karan, the point is Luke is asking for the 2B set of static table and not the as, right, Luke? If I'm...
You're absolutely right.
Luke, so when you do the socializing call, I think the strategy should be that simply first you tell, okay guys, this we had this old tool, we are moving to the new tool, and then Ritesh, whatever the PPT, the document you have, we just tell them this is gonna be the new tool. It hasn't been built. It's not ready right now. We are working on it. We have collated these requirements based on that team, and we want to understand what other requirement there can be. So they can tell us, so you can show that these are all requirements, and if they have the additional requirements, just gather it. That's it, because we can't show them what is not built right now, and there is no point. It will confuse them. It will show them the old tool. So don't show the old tool. Just show we are working on this new build, and these are the requirements which we are working on. Do you think is there anything else you have in mind which can impact you?
Let me worry about the comms, and I'll cross-reference you before I send anything out. I didn't suggest showing them the old tool or the new tool. What I do need to know is who I'm communicating with, what I'm telling them, and most importantly, what my ask is for each of those teams, whether they're giving requirements or whether I need people for UAT or willing to do UAT. We've moved on from that. I will have a think about the comms and comms clusters in a minute. So it's useful for me to know that these static tables. So as we go through these, Ritesh, if you can just confirm whether we're keeping them or losing them, and then any new tables. So first of all, presumably we're going to retain the user static table.
Luke, what I'll do is I'll probably set up a follow-up call where I can discuss all the static table with you in detail. Some of these tables which are being used are going to move as part of request portal. So, for example, the user thing is not going to be a static table anymore to be maintained by anybody. Mm-hmm. It will predominantly come as a request. Somebody who wants to use this tool will have to raise a request via request portal to get an access to the tool. But there are certain tables which are to be maintained. 90%, or I would say 95% are being maintained by tax team. There are only 4 or 5 tables.
Well, let's step away from percentages and let's talk about what actual tables are going to be maintained by the tax team. So it's details. I like details, Rajesh. I only use statistics when I'm talking to someone else, and I don't want to have to go into the detail. So, for instance, tax codes. I understand that. Is that going to be a static team? Is that going to be a static table?
Yes. So I'm sharing my screen here. So this is the list of table which we are going to use. Static tables. Okay. Tax team is going to maintain almost all of it. So except for the last one, last two or last 3. Okay, so the first one is the tax code determination table based on the various parameters that is discussed in the document. Then there is one for
how is that update? So once they're in place, is that hard coded? Is it changeable? And if it's changeable, is that a manual process, or do we update a backing table that can be done ad hoc?
So based on the inputs that we received, right, we want to maintain this table with the valid from date, and we have people entering the values if they're changing with a particular valid from date, and the tax will be determined based on the date of validity. Okay,
so who will be doing that? And this is what I'm trying to understand. Will it be an IT team doing it, or will it be the tax team doing it? Because that changed the mechanics. So we do it. So are we doing it directly into the tool, or are we, maintaining it? Are we doing it in SAP? Okay. Awesome.
So all the tax table, all the tables which will be maintained would be done in SAP. The first 3 tables that will be maintained by tax team. First one is for the tax code, the second one is for nature of underlying service, and the third one is the legal reference for each jurisdiction. If they want this to be maintained, this will get printed on the invoice. These 3 tables are to be maintained by IT, which is our team. So EU, the number of countries in EU, so this will change if there are any new addition to EU or outside. I mean, there are some EU exits. Then the type of invoices.
Sorry, because I'm trying to absorb all this information rather. So LREF, what does that stand for?
Legal reference. So basically, this is something which gets printed on the invoice at the bottom of the invoice as part of legal requirements. So for example, I mean, Rohit had mentioned that UK has some text field which needs to be printed on every invoice at the bottom of the invoice, and we maintain this at country level. Okay.
So it's driven by the supplier, IES, and it's also driven by location. Is that right?
It is only driven by country of the invoice generation company code, billing entity.
Cool. All right, next.
So first 3 are clear, right? Tax code, the nature of underlying service, and legal reference. Okay.
Yeah.
The fourth one is EU country. This will be maintained by IT. This is the list of company codes, countries which are part of EU. This is to determine whether when we are doing external customer invoice, whether it is part of EU or non-EU.
And who are they going to for that reference?
What they going to do? See, basically this is maintained by IT, and when there will be a country which is going to get added to EU or getting out of EU, then this table will get edited. Otherwise, this table will remain as is.
So it's absolutely owned, and the source data is owned by the IT team.
Yes.
Cool. Next.
Next is type of invoice. So again, we have agreed to only the 5 or 6 types of invoices: fee, BCP, syndicate BCP, syndicate, and those invoices. So those invoices are part of this table. In future, if there are any requirement for additional invoice types, that will have to be requested as a change management process, and IT is going to maintain that based on the inputs received. So it has linkage to number range and other things. So this is completely owned by IT, but this will not be something which will be updated on a regular basis. This will undergo a change management process in case we need to introduce new invoice types.
Yeah, it sounds like there's quite a few dependencies there, so it makes sense that IT own it, and it makes sense that if we do want to change it, we do it by request.
Yes. And the last, and this is the table which is the hierarchy table. Here what we are doing is we are maintaining the relationship between the country and the company code. So basically when we select say GB as the billing country, then we don't want to list down 1200 entities across UK which are part of SAP there. We want to restrict only say 20-30 company codes which are going to use the tool, and this tool will be maintained by IT. Any new company code to be added to this list can be done via an incident, and that incident once raised can be with the IT team. The IT team will add a new company code to that list.
You said that was done by change request again? Sorry, I missed.
Not a change request, incident. So basically the change request has a lead time of at least 3 days. We don't want to wait that long. So we had agreed with Rohit that we'll use the incident route to add new company codes to the tool.
And do you have a working hierarchy at the moment, or is this something we're building from scratch?
This we are building from scratch.
Okay.
So this is...
and is IT going to do that? Do you need us to agree hierarchies or anything like that? Is there any dependency there? Because that's the other thing I want to capture today, dependency.
So for the go live, we need input from tax team, which all company codes for which country needs to be activated. And then it will be the normal BOW process where whenever a new company code needs to be added, an incident will be raised.
Cool. Okay, so that's the hierarchy. And that sounds like the first one we've covered so far that's a completely new build.
Now, when we were looking at some of the tables which Karan was highlighting, so for example, the user base, okay. Now, user base is we are shifting from static table to request portal. So all the users who wants to use this tool will have to raise a request in the request portal once it goes live, okay. So once it goes live, they need to raise a request to request portal, and the access will be provided to the user to the tool. Okay, in what capacity? Again, the user will have to raise so basically if you go back to the requirement document, there are 5 set of users and each will have a different role. A user who's with basic user who's supposed to raise the invoice will raise a request for basic user role. A finance user will raise a request for finance role. A tax team user will raise a request for tax as a tax user role. So everybody will have a different set of access based on the role that he's requesting, and he or she can have multiple roles. So a basic user can also be a tax team user and vice versa.
So the question is, how do we set that up at a request level? Do we just assume everyone knows what they're doing and they can do that, or is there something else that we need to do?
So once the requester is sending the request, there is his manager is set as an approver, so he needs to decide whether the person who is requesting is requesting for the right access. So initial, when we are going to have the call or demo, we need to probably tell them, okay, what is the importance of each role and how it is going to play out, right? So this is not something which is required in the initial communication, but probably this will come more during the UAT phase where they are discussing different roles and how it works.
So Ritesh, sorry to interrupt. Can we have a document in place which tells how to raise a request, which specifically mention that the user request has to be based on their role, and there can be a super user who's having access for all the areas, but it should be based on their accesses. Like, finance user will have finance. If we can have some document in place, that will help Luke. When he's socializing, he can tell guys, refer to this document for raising a request.
No, that will come later. As I said, see, Richa, so basically when we develop this tool, right, it goes into UAT, right? After UAT, it goes into production. When it goes into production, the request portal gets updated with the new rules. Till the tool moves to production itself, the request portal will not have the rules in it for us to create a document. You got my point? So,
yeah, I get that, but I also see where Richard's coming from, and I agree with her. If we can define those and at an early stage of socializing this, just get people used to the idea of having these different roles, and at a high level, there's different.
Yeah, that is there already in the requirement document. So
we don't need any more detail there, but we don't need the document to explain how to do the request portal, but as long as they know it's going to be through a request portal and what the roles are, then I could just take what we've got from the requirements document, which is cool.
Yes.
And I think that will help. Excellent. Okay, that means I think we got to the application header.
So these are all internal tables. These are application line item, header table, workflow approval and notes table. These are all tables which are used by the tool. And this is nothing to be done either by the user or by the IT. These are auto-updated and used for various reporting. So these are, you can ignore these tables. From user perspective, they are not visible at all.
Cool, and that team has no obligation to update or confirm or we don't have anything to do with these, right?
Yes.
I'll capture that as well. Yeah. So that means clusters is being decommissioned, business areas being decommissioned, payment details. That's
getting decommissioned. We are moving to standard SCP table, so that's why we are not having any static table. Now that is a point of contention where finance might come and tell they want static table, and if that is the case, they have to own it because tax, rightly so, doesn't want to own it, which it is owning currently.
And it's a good all-round IT control that any bank accounts that we're using are logged on SAP. So, yeah, I can see us getting some pushback on that, but I think the right thing to do is just say if you want to use a bank account, then you need to get it on SAP and bring this on them. And that's something I want to and this is why I'm going through this. That's something I want to socialize quite early.
Yeah.
So people can come back and make complaints, then we can tell them no. And then billing entities, what about that? Is that being decommissioned as well?
Yeah, so that is actually going to get combined to this, right? So billing entity and country combination, we are going to link. So this is what the tax team is going to initially give us input, and then as a BOW process, any new entity will be onboarded by raising an incident.
Cool. So, okay, let's move on to build. So initial build, what's the expected completion date for that? Prior to UAT. So I'm talking about the first draft here. So
yeah. So basically, we have initially estimated 6 weeks of build time. So that will work out to be somewhere middle of April. We'll try and use this time to do start unit testing parallelly. So we will not wait. We are going to have some overlap of unit testing and build together on this. And then there would be 2 weeks of unit testing around. So by end of April, I'm expecting the tool to be unit tested and available for UAT.
So shall we say that UAT is due to start from the 1st of May?
Yes.
Okay, start 1 May. And when does it need to be completed?
Yeah, so basically now, Luke, that is more driven from the fact that how many users are going to do the testing. Initially, we had plan for 2 weeks of UAT and 1 week of regression tests, so 3 weeks of testing cycle, and then we'll need a week to prepare for go live. So that is how we have planned initially.
And Dinesh, for your UAT testing, can we, like, how many nominees you want from each team? Like from finance, if we have 2 people testing in UAT, that should be enough, right? So you can ask 2 nominees from each team, from each area, and they will be testing.
Exactly. So each year is where it gets complicated because, you are talking about different jurisdiction, different team having different representatives. So we need to be careful. I don't want to put any limitation because from our perspective, we can ask as many people to test. From UK perspective, we can have.
But minimum we need that minimum, like we have to tell, like minimum at least 2 people from each team or 3, whatever you count, they have to do it. Otherwise, they'll be like, okay, we are just, okay, they'll do 1, they might not do it. So we have to be very clear. You have to give, you have to do UAT and give us a sign off. So we are agreeing. So.
Well, this is why I wanted to break the users into categories, and in theory, you could have someone from every jurisdiction in finance and every jurisdiction in tax, and possibly even in the broader user base as well. That's why I want to message them. Can we not put any limits on them, but when we start socialising, going out and talking about the tool and taking them through the requirements that we've got, to explain the new tool to them, I think we need to make it clear that if you want a stake in UAT, put your name forward and we'll add you to the list. That's fine. If you don't, then you don't have a say.
So
I want the responsibility to lie there.
Yeah. Also, Luke, probably just an input. What we can do is we can also look at the number of users who are raising maximum number of invoices today in the invoice tool, and target those specifically to come for raising. For the raising part. Okay, invoice creation part. Finance users and tax users. You're right. We can reach out for every jurisdiction, but I think we should try and cover, say. There are 2,000 invoices getting created today in the invoice tool per year, and out of those 2,000, say 1,000 are being created by a set of 10 users. Then we should actually request those 10 users to certainly be part of the UAT, because they're going to make the most noise if something is not working after go live. So it's better to get their buy-in in the UAT.
Yeah. Do we have stats like that we can rely on? Really good shout. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, I think so. That was already shared by Kritika. Kritika has handy those set of users with maximum number of invoices.
Yes, Luke. She has provided the list, and she has also provided the based on locations as well. The users based on location.
Top volumes.
Awesome. Top 20, or we can. It's not much. Only 75 users are there. So we can.
It's not an impossible task, so
yeah,
we can do that. But we also need to make it open to other people who may want to have a specific buy-in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got build estimated completion of 14th of April. UAT start 1st of May 2023 to be completed 15th of May 2023, and regression testing when 19th May 2023.
Yes.
And when are we looking to go live? Do we have a go live date?
So
yes, it's 38th of November. Go live, business go live will be 38th of November.
Oh, I think you socialised that, Risha. Sorry, that's my bad for not picking up on that. Do apologise for having to come back to you on that. Okay. Is there anything else that anyone thinks we should be keeping a watch on?
With a question, if we are planning the UAT, let's say from 1st of May, and I believe it would be 2 to 3 weeks of UAT cycle.
Yep.
And why can't we roll this out, let's say by July?
Yeah, that will be like fantastic if we can do that. Then we have enough time to even think about the phase 2 of the business go live. The only point we have, just in case we get too many requirements from the set of users from finance or other people, this requirement gathering might take time, and then we might get some further add-on requirements which Ritesh has to then work on to inbuilt in his build design. So for that we need some time. So right now the hardcore line is 30th of November, but yes, definitely if we can close by Q3, that will be the perfect thing.
Yeah, okay, so that's good to know. Earlier if we can.
Technically, Rohit, once we have the sign off, right, we can move the change to production.
Yeah.
We can keep the tool ready. The request portal will take some time to update. It will take probably a month or two to update. And after that, if the user is ready, we can start moving users by company code and asking them to use the new tool. So we can do that earlier. From Richa, from the point of view of the additional build, again, I mean, emphasizing on the
only
fact that
only small things which you can cater. The big chunk definitely will go to the next year, for which we don't have budget, but the small requirements, whatever is there, that you can cover it up.
Once we know what we've got in full,
Yeah.
we'll be able to work through that. I have a question. When we do talk about UAT, and it's about UAT and sign-off, who is actually required to give formal sign-off before we can move into production? Because I don't think everyone who's doing the UAT should be able to put a blocker for the tool in place like that. There are instances being enough, some people are just really pernickety about something, and sometimes you've just got to go live and work with it and carry on developing elsewhere. That's my thinking, but I'd really appreciate everyone else's thinking on the call.
I mean, I would not go to user level for UAT sign off.
Level.
Yeah, so I would think that, for example, Rohit from tax team can internally discuss with other stakeholders within tax team. Similarly, we can have, say, Daniel from finance team or somebody who can look at from basic user perspective, who can provide an overall sign off. So we can look at identifying director level kind of person.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like oral sign-off. I want an email chain to support this.
Yes. So each of this area, we can nominate, we can identify one person who can provide an email sign-off, and we can use that as a basis of oral sign-off and then move to change.
Except for the user base, because I think if we pick one person to do that, whatever we do there, it's going to be contentious. So one person from VAT team, one person from finance, one person from JEPS, and one person from the wider tax team. Though that might have to go slightly jurisdictional.
So basically, Luke, in your call, so you have a couple of agendas to cover. First is introduce the new tool. Then second is get the requirement. You have to tell them, like, we need the requirement. On top of it, these are our current, but if you think we have not covered anything, then tell us that. So second will be requirement. Third will be UAT testing. For UAT testing, you will tell them, like, you have to do UAT testing. For them, they have to tell their people so that we can grant them the UAT access. No.
I think it's a bit more complex than that, and let me draft something up and have a think about it. Because one is, we're telling people what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And that this change is happening. The second thing is, we're not asking for their requirements. We are taking them through the requirements we've got and we're opening up to them for any additional thought.
Requirements.
I don't want to call it requirements because that makes it very, very formal. But additional input into the build, which we'll factor in as far as we can and build a long-term plan of development. Then we have to do another socialization, which is actually at the meeting level, which is Ritesh taking them through the design and then they may or may not be able to respond on the back of that call, but they will need a limited time in which to get back with their comments. That has to then be digested and an output produced, and then you've got to go back again to them and say, this is what we've done. So I'm going to go away and have a detailed think about the cons, because it's not something you just stick into one email. If people are sick of seeing these emails, but they're expecting them, that's better than kind of one big email that comes through and you never know if it just gets missed or someone's on leave, someone crucial's on leave. So this is why I take the socializing structure very seriously, and I will go away and do a plan. I'll discuss with Rohit what I plan to do. I'll discuss with Rohit and you, Richa, what I plan to do. And we can agree in the number of comms and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. But I want to get some structure in it, and I want to get some dates in the diary for socializing. Because, if we're looking at build by, mid-April, this needs to be done. I need to be on. I want things in the diary and happening by the end of next week. I want those conversations happening. So I've got to get on the whole thing now. But I want to have a very precise idea of what I'm socializing to whom, for when, and what the consequences of that are.
So we can step that, Karan, if you can provide the list of respective users, finance end user, GAPS users, and rest of the tax users, a separate stakeholder details for 4 of these areas. Then, and in a meanwhile, Luke, if you can draft a light email to socialize that, and then I can set up a call, and attaching your email, we can start giving a session, the first light session to everyone, and then we can agree on, because definitely we need the sign off on UAT. So on the second one, where Ritesh can take through the by 15th of April anyways, UAT will be there, build will be there. He can show us this is how it's going to look, and we need you guys to start doing the testing, and then we can agree all the A user for respective 4 of these areas, we need the sign off by this date, and then we can go to the
so this is all too verbal and it's too much information coming through. I need to see it written down, which is why I want to things in advance. But if you're going to arrange the calls, that would be fantastic. So let me put together we both need the user list. Karen, when can you get that to us by?
Yes, Leo. I will check the details available in the folder. Like Kritika, I remember have gathered it last year. But if any other details you will require, I'll get in touch with Ritesh as well. And can we expect it? By end of this week or earlier? Than that.
Can we do it by? If you can get me the details in the groups by close of play tomorrow, which is Thursday. What I want to do is then have a catch up with Richa with a plan on the comms and the meetings and what we're going to talk about, and then the sequence of communications. So, let's do that.
Sure.
That'll be really helpful, and then I can see who's who and where they are, and that'll be great.
Okay. And the last point I wanted to confirm, we need some documentation and trainings for this new tool. So Ritesh, you are on track with that, right? Because soon we will need that for the users to.
Well, I think we need to build the tool first. So I would expect that to be happening during the UAT phase.
Yeah, we prepare the document as part of unit testing, the training document. We'll wait for the build to complete, and when we're doing unit testing, we'll start building the document parallelly.
Okay.
And what we want to do is we want to give a demo before we actually kick off the UAT, or start the UAT with a demo, so that we understand how it looks, which can be recorded and shared with different users if they're not able to join.
Yeah, makes
Excellent.
sense. Okay.
No, good shout. I'd missed that one. Thanks, Richa.
Thank you.
Appreciated. Okay, I'm going to draw. We've got 2 minutes back in the diary. Personally, for me, this has been an immensely helpful call. So thank you all for listening to me and drone on. I know it's not easy, but it's really, really helpful. for me to just get a picture of what's going on. What I'll do is I'll neaten this up a bit and circulate it to everyone on the call so you can see what I've captured. And then, Karen, if you can head straight off with the, and I'll do that as a to-do. But I know you're already on it. So yeah, if we can agree to get that by close of play tomorrow with a view to at least agreeing what the contents of the first com is going to be by close of business, or comms are going to be by close of business tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, the reason I do things like this is 14th of April feels very close to me. So it's all good. So yeah, anybody got any comments or questions before we go? We've got 60 seconds before the...
No, and if we do it earlier, it's going to be achievement for all of you, so which will be communicated to Richard Crane. So let's try to wrap this up as soon as possible, and yeah.
You're going so well, and now I feel the pressure even more. There we go. It's all good. Well, thank you all very much. Really, really useful call. Much appreciated. Have a good day.
Bye.
ఇమీడియట్గా ఒకటి అతుక్కొని ఇమీడియట్గా ఇంకోటి ఉందా బాగా అతుక్కొని అదే ప్లానింగ్ టు మన ఏడ అంత ఇంగ్లీష్ ఏడ మాట్లాడతావు పోనీ అమ్మ జీవితం ఎట్లా మాట్లాడతాను అయిపోయి కంటిన్యూయేషనే ఏదో రెడీ జాయిన్ ఫసక్ ఓన్లీ వన్స్ ఫసక్ అన్నట్టు అమ్మ మా ఎవరు లేరు దీంట్లో వెయిటింగ్ టు జాయిన్ అదర్స్ అంత కట్ చేయొచ్చా వాడే వస్తాలే తీసుకెళ్ళి రీచా నా కాల్ ఇది ఓ నెమ్మ డబ్బు రీచా ఇదే పెట్టిందా పెంట చేస్తుంది ఇది రీచా పెట్టిందా ఇది హలో రితేష్ for tax mandatory program there is requirement to do the delivery లేదు మళ్ళీ సపరేట్గా pre-assessment which is changed that it to be delivered we need to answer a series of questions to arrive at result at which we need to input for few of the questions are related to AR tool. It will be quick 15 minutes call. Richa ఏం రీచానా యా హాయ్ రీచా